Captain Tae Kim stepped off the transport shuttle and into the massive space station. Helios 7 was the biggest trading post in this part of the galaxy. Thousands of aliens moved through the wide corridors. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like walking plants. Tae had seen many strange things in his 15 years of space travel, but he never got tired of it. He was here on business. The human government wanted to buy mining rights from a species called the Valrine. They were insect-like creatures, tall and thin, with shiny black shells and large compound eyes. The Valrine were known across the galaxy for two things. First, they made the best technology. Second, they had very strict rules about their females. Tae walked toward the meeting hall. His boots clicked on the metal floor. He wore his best uniform, dark blue with gold buttons. His black hair was neat, and he had shaved that morning. First impressions mattered in business, his father always said. The meeting hall was huge. A dome ceiling showed the stars outside. Hundreds of aliens sat at tables, eating and talking. Tae spotted the Valrine delegation in the corner. There were 10 of them, all males. They wore red robes with silver patterns. But what caught Tae's eye was something else. Behind the male Valrine stood 3 transparent boxes. Inside each box was a female Valrine. They looked similar to the males but smaller and with purple markings on their shells. They wore beautiful white and gold clothing that seemed to float around them. The boxes glowed with a soft blue light. Tae walked over to the Valrine table. The leader, a large male with scars on his shell, stood up. His name was Commander Vesh. Tae had read about him in the briefing files. Captain Kim, Vesh said through his translator device. His real voice sounded like clicking and buzzing. Welcome to Helios 7. We are pleased to discuss business with humanity. Thank you, Commander, Tae said. He tried not to stare at the females in the boxes. I'm honored to be here. They sat down and began talking about mining rights. The conversation was boring. Numbers, percentages, shipping costs. Tae's mind kept wandering to the females in the boxes. They stood perfectly still, like statues, but their eyes moved, watching everything around them. After an hour, they took a break. Tae excused himself and walked toward the refreshment area. That's when he saw it happen. A small alien, covered in orange fur, was walking past the Valrine delegation. He wasn't paying attention and bumped into one of the transparent boxes. Just a light touch, barely anything. The alien said sorry and kept walking. Suddenly, alarms went off. Red lights flashed. 6 Valrine guards appeared from nowhere. They grabbed the small alien and threw him to the ground. The alien screamed in fear. What's happening? Someone shouted. Commander Vesh stood up. His voice boomed through the hall. This criminal has touched a sacred vessel. He has violated the most holy law of the Valrine. He must die. The hall went silent. Everyone stared. The small alien was crying now, begging for mercy in a language Tae didn't understand. Wait, Tae said, stepping forward. He just bumped into the box by accident. Surely that's not. The box protects the sacred energy, Vesh said coldly. But the violation has occurred. The law is clear. Tae felt sick to his stomach. They were going to kill someone for an accident? He wanted to argue, but another human grabbed his arm. It was Dr. Hana Lee, a scientist who worked on the station. Don't, Hana whispered. You'll make it worse. The Valrine don't compromise on this, ever. Tae watched helplessly as the guards dragged the small alien away. The other aliens in the hall looked away. No one wanted to get involved. After a few minutes, the alarms stopped. Everyone went back to eating and talking like nothing had happened. Tae couldn't believe it. He sat down at an empty table, his hands shaking. Hana sat across from him. That was murder, Tae said. Yes, Hana agreed. She was a thin woman, with short black hair and glasses, but it's their law. The Valrine believe their females emit something called sacred energy. They think if any alien touches a female, even through a barrier, it corrupts them, makes them infertile. They've believed this for thousands of years. That's insane. Maybe. But it's their culture. 60 species use this station. Everyone has different beliefs. If we start judging everyone, the whole system falls apart. Tay looked back at the Valrine delegation. The males were eating again. The females stood in their boxes, silent and still. But one of them, the tallest one, was looking directly at Tay. Her compound eyes reflected the station lights like jewels. "Do the females believe it too?" Tay asked. Hana shrugged. "No one knows. They're not allowed to talk to outsiders. Only male Valrine can speak for them. Some people say the females are happy with the arrangement. Others say they're prisoners. But no one can prove anything either way." That night, Tay couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that female Valrine, staring at him from inside her glowing prison. He got up and walked through the station. It was quiet now. Most aliens were sleeping. He found himself in the observation area. Large windows showed the black space outside, filled with stars and distant planets. And there, standing at another window, was one of the transparent boxes. Inside was the tall female Valrine who had stared at him earlier. 2 guards stood nearby, but they were talking to each other and not paying attention. Tay walked closer. The female saw him coming. She moved to the edge of her box, as close to the transparent wall as she could get. Up close, Tay could see details he'd missed before. Her shell was dark blue, not pure black. The purple markings on her head formed patterns like flowers. Her eyes were large and seemed almost sad. She raised one thin hand and placed it against the inside of the box. Tay didn't know why he did it. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was compassion. But he raised his hand and placed it on the outside of the box, right where her hand was. Only a thin barrier separated them. The female's eyes widened. For a moment, they just stood there, 2 beings from different worlds, almost touching. Then she did something that shocked Tay completely. She traced a symbol on the box with one claw, then another, and another. Tay realized she was writing. The symbols weren't any language he knew, but the intent was clear. She was trying to communicate. She wanted to talk to him. This wasn't a silent, content female living a sacred life. This was someone desperate to connect with the outside world. Before Tay could respond, the guards noticed. They shouted and ran toward him. Tay stepped back, raising his hands. "I wasn't touching anything," he said quickly. "Just looking at the view." The guards glared at him but couldn't do anything. He hadn't broken any rules. They moved the box away, back toward the Valrine quarters. But as they did, the female looked back at Tay one more time. Her eyes held a clear message. "Help us." Tay walked back to his room slowly. His mind raced with questions. What had he just witnessed? Was this female a prisoner? Were all Valrine females prisoners? And if they were, what could one human captain possibly do about it? He knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, he would find answers. Even if those answers were dangerous. The next morning, Tay went to find Dr. Hana Lee. She worked in the medical research wing of Helios 7. The area was clean and white, filled with strange equipment that beeped and hummed. Scientists from different species worked at various stations, studying samples and recording data. Hana was at her desk, looking at something on a holographic screen. She seemed excited about whatever she was seeing. When Tay walked in, she looked up and smiled. "Tay, perfect timing. You need to see this. I need to talk to you about the Valrine females," Tay said. "That's exactly what I want to show you." Hana tapped her screen and brought up a complex diagram. It showed molecular structures and chemical formulas. "I've been studying samples from different species for my research. Last night, I finally got permission to analyze some Valrine biological data, and I found something incredible." Tay looked at the screen. He didn't understand any of it. "What am I looking at?" "This is the so-called sacred energy that the Valrine talk about." Hana pointed to a cluster of molecules. "It's not sacred. It's not even mystical. It's a pheromone barrier, a chemical defense system." "I don't understand." Hana sat back in her chair. "Millions of years ago, The Valrine evolved on a dangerous planet. There was a predator species there that hunted female Valrine specifically because they laid eggs. So the females evolved this pheromone barrier to confuse the predators. It made them invisible to the predator's senses. Okay, Tay said slowly. But what does that have to do with aliens touching them? That's the point. Hana stood up, excited. It has nothing to do with aliens. The predator species went extinct 3 million years ago. The barrier still exists in Valrine females, but it doesn't serve any purpose anymore. And it definitely doesn't get corrupted by alien touch. That's biologically impossible. Tay felt his heart beat faster. So the whole sacred energy thing is a myth, based on a misunderstanding of their own evolution. At some point in their history, the males decided this biological trait was sacred. They built their entire social structure around it, and now, thousands of years later, they're still following rules that never made sense in the first place. Tay sat down heavily. This is huge. If we tell the Valrine, we can't just tell them, another voice said. Doctor. Jay Park walked into the lab. He was Hana's colleague, a medical officer with kind eyes and gray streaks in his hair. I heard the last part of your conversation. Hana, are you absolutely sure about this? I've checked it 10 times, Hana said. I even sent the data to 3 other xenobiologists. They all agree. The sacred energy is just an evolutionary leftover. It poses no danger to anyone. Jay rubbed his face. The Valrine won't want to hear this. Their entire government is built on the idea that females need to be protected and controlled. If that protection is unnecessary, then their whole system loses legitimacy. Exactly, Tay said. Which is why they might already know. Hana and Jay stared at him. Think about it. Tay continued. The Valrine are advanced. They have incredible technology. They must have scientists who studied this. Maybe they discovered the truth years ago, decades ago, maybe even centuries ago. But if they knew, Hana said slowly, and they kept it secret, then it's not about protection at all. Jay finished. It's about control. Keeping the females locked up gives the males absolute power over reproduction. Over family lines, over their entire society. The 3 humans sat in silence. The weight of what they'd discovered pressed down on them. This wasn't just a scientific finding. This was evidence of oppression that had lasted for thousands of years. We need more proof, Tay said. Hana, can you dig through Valrine historical records? See if any of their scientists ever published findings like this. The station library has access to most galactic databases. I'll start searching. For the next week, the 3 humans worked together. Hana searched through old Valrine scientific papers. Jay contacted other medical officers who had dealt with Valrine patients. Tay used his diplomatic access to request cultural and historical documents. What they found made them sick. 50 years ago, a Valrine scientist named Tyrex had published a paper about the pheromone barrier. He'd argued that it served no protective purpose, and that the sacred energy doctrine was based on outdated beliefs. 3 months after his paper was published, he was arrested for heresy. The government executed him. His family was sterilized so his bloodline would end. His paper was removed from all official databases, but someone had kept a copy. A human librarian had saved it in the station's archives, marking it as historically significant. That's how Hana found it. They knew, Hana said, staring at the old document on her screen. The Valrine government knew the truth 50 years ago. Probably longer. And they killed anyone who tried to reveal it. Tay felt anger burning in his chest. Every time he walked through the station, he saw those transparent boxes. Those females standing inside like artwork on display. And now he knew they were prisoners. Prisoners of a lie. Someone's watching us, Jay said quietly. Tay looked up. Through the lab window, he could see a Valrine male standing in the corridor. The alien wasn't trying to hide. He just stood there, staring at them with his compound eyes. How long has he been there? Tay asked. 10 minutes, maybe longer. The Valrine finally walked away. But the message was clear. They'd noticed the humans asking questions. That night, Tae's door chimed. When he opened it, his friend Minho Choi stood there. Minho was a security officer on the station, responsible for keeping peace between different species. He was young but tough, with short hair and alert eyes. "We need to talk," Minho said, pushing into the room. "You're being investigated." "By who?" "Valrine Intelligence. They've filed a complaint with station security. They say you're interfering with their cultural practices, harassing their delegation. They want you removed from Helios 7. "I haven't done anything," Tae protested. "You've been asking questions about their females, requesting access to restricted documents. They know, Tae. Whatever you're looking into, they're aware of it." Tae wanted to tell Minho everything. About Hana's discovery, about Tyrex, about the conspiracy. But he didn't know if he could trust anyone else yet. The more people who knew, the more danger everyone was in. "I'll be careful," Tae said. "Be more than careful. Be smart. The Valrine have a lot of power in this sector. If they want you gone, you're gone." After Minho left, Tai lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the female who had tried to communicate with him. He wondered if she was okay. If they'd punished her for attempting contact with a human. His computer beeped. New message. Tae sat up and checked it. The message was encrypted. High-level encryption that took his computer 30 seconds to decode. When it finally opened, Tae's breath caught in his throat. It was a video file. The image showed a room he didn't recognize. In the center stood a female Valrine. Not in a box. Just standing there. Free. She began to speak. The translator text appeared at the bottom of the screen. "My name is Saris. I am a Valrine female. What I am about to tell you is dangerous. But you must hear it. Many of us know the sacred energy is false. Some of us have touched aliens before. In secret. Nothing happened to us. We did not become corrupted. We did not lose our fertility. The doctrine is a lie. And we know it." Saris moved closer to the camera. Her eyes were intense, desperate. "But when we speak this truth, we disappear. The males say we went mad. They say we needed treatment. But we never come back. My sister spoke out 5 years ago. I never saw her again. There are hundreds of us who want freedom, who want to live as equals, but we cannot do it alone. We need help. We need someone brave enough to stand with us." The video ended. Below it was a data file. Tae opened it and found hundreds of messages. All from Valrine females. All saying the same thing. "Help us. Free us. Please." Tae's hands trembled as he read them. These weren't happy, protected females living sacred lives. These were prisoners, begging for liberation. He had a choice to make. He could delete the message, finish his business deal, and go home. Pretend he never learned the truth. Stay safe. Or he could do something about it. Tae didn't sleep that night. He watched Saris's video 20 times, reading every message in the data file. Each one broke his heart a little more. Stories of sisters who vanished. Mothers separated from daughters. Young females who had never felt sunlight without a barrier between them and the world. In the morning, he called Hana and Jay to his quarters. He showed them everything. Hana cried as she read the messages. Jay's face grew harder and angrier with each story. "We have to do something," Hana said, wiping her eyes. "We can't just ignore this." "What can we do?" Jay asked. "We're 3 humans on a station controlled by dozens of species. The Valrine are powerful. They have allies. If we accuse them of oppression, it becomes a political mess. Then we make it scientific," Hana said. "We publish my research, show the galaxy that the sacred energy is just biology. Once everyone knows the truth, the Valrine government can't maintain the lie." Tae shook his head. "They'll do what they did to Tyrex. They'll call it heresy. Attack your credibility. And if that doesn't work, they'll make you disappear too." "So what's your plan?" Jay asked. Tae looked at both of them. "We need more evidence. not just scientific data. We need to prove that the Valrine government knows the truth and has been hiding it. If we can show they've been lying deliberately, then it's not a cultural issue anymore. It's a conspiracy. Over the next 2 weeks, they worked in secret. Hana continued her research, finding more examples of Valrine scientists who had questioned the sacred energy doctrine. Every single one had been silenced. Some were executed, others simply vanished from public record. Jay used his medical connections to find Valrine patients who had been treated at various hospitals across the galaxy. He found 3 cases where female Valrine had been accidentally exposed to aliens during medical emergencies. In all 3 cases, nothing bad happened. The females remained healthy and fertile. But in all 3 cases, the Valrine government had pressured the hospitals to destroy the records. Tay focused on the political side. He dug through diplomatic files, trade agreements, and council meeting notes. What he discovered was disturbing. The Valrine male elite had built their entire economy around controlling female reproduction. Wealthy families paid enormous sums to guarantee their sons could marry fertile females. The government acted as gatekeepers, deciding which bloodlines continued and which ended. It wasn't just oppression, it was a business. But as they gathered evidence, the danger grew worse. One night, someone broke into Hana's lab. They didn't steal anything, but they destroyed 3 months of research. All her samples were contaminated. Her computer files were corrupted. It was a message: stop digging. Jay was followed by Valrine agents whenever he left his quarters. They didn't hide. They wanted him to know they were watching. When he went to file a complaint with station security, he was told there was nothing they could do. The Valrine were simply exercising their right to monitor potential threats. Then Minho came to Tay with worse news. "They're building a case against you," Minho said. They were in a quiet corner of the station, far from listening devices. "The Valrine delegation has submitted formal charges. They say you've been attempting to corrupt their females, interfering with their sacred practices, violating treaty agreements." "That's insane," Tay said. "I haven't even talked to any of them." "Doesn't matter. They have witnesses who say you've been loitering near the containment areas. They have surveillance footage of you placing your hand on a containment field. They're calling it attempted violation." Tay remembered that night when he'd almost touched the transparent box where Sarah stood. They'd been watching, recording, building evidence against him. "When do I have to leave?" "You have 3 days. After that, station security will escort you to a transport ship." Minho lowered his voice. "But that's not the worst part. The Valrine are also requesting your extradition. They want to try you in their courts for heresy. Can they do that?" "Technically, yes, if both governments agree. And your government might agree, just to avoid a diplomatic crisis." Tay felt cold. If he was extradited to Valrine space, he'd face the same fate as Tyrex. Execution. And everything he'd discovered would die with him. That evening, Commander Vesh himself came to Tay's quarters. The large Valrine had to duck to fit through the doorway. His shell was polished, and his red robes were freshly cleaned. He looked like someone attending a funeral. "Captain Kim," Vesh said, his translator giving his words a formal tone. "I thought we should speak before your departure." "I'm not leaving by choice," Tay said. "No, you are leaving because you could not respect our ways. You have insulted our most sacred traditions. You have attempted to defile our females with your presence." "I never touched anyone." Vesh clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "You think this is about touching? This is about respect, about understanding that not all species share your human ideas about freedom and equality. Our females are happy, protected, sacred. They do not need your pity or your interference." "Are they happy?" Tay asked. "Have you ever asked them?" "They do not need to be asked. We know what is best for them. We have maintained our way of life for thousands of years. It has made us strong, prosperous. Why should we change because some humans have different opinions?" Tay wanted to shout the truth at him, to show him all the evidence. The messages from desperate females, the proof that the sacred energy was a lie. But he stayed quiet. Showing his hand now would only make things worse. "I'll leave peacefully," Tay said. "I don't want trouble." Wise, Vesh said, but as he turned to leave, he paused. A word of advice, Captain. Some truths are dangerous. Some doors are better left closed. If you continue down this path, you will find only suffering, for yourself and for those you claim to help. After Vesh left, Tay sat in the darkness of his room. He felt defeated. What could one person do against a system thousands of years old? The Valrine had power, money, and influence. They controlled the narrative. Anyone who opposed them disappeared or died. His computer beeped. Another encrypted message. This time it was shorter. They are planning to move us soon, to a facility deep in Valrine space. Once we are there, no one will ever find us. We have one chance, one opportunity. The Grand Galactic Assembly is in 3 weeks. Representatives from 60 species will be there. If you can prove the truth in front of them all, the Valrine government cannot silence everyone. Please. This is our last hope. The message was from Saris. Tay called Hana and Jay immediately. They came to his quarters within minutes. He showed them the message. The Grand Assembly, Hana said thoughtfully. That's held in neutral space. No single species controls it. If we could present evidence there. We'd need approval to speak, Jay interrupted. You can't just walk into the assembly and start making accusations. You need sponsorship from a council member. I might have a contact, Tay said. Ambassador Threx. He's a young Valrine who spoke at a trade conference last year. He seemed different from the others. More open-minded. If I can reach him, that's a big if, Minho said. He'd been listening from the doorway. And even if you get permission to speak, what then? You accuse the Valrine government of a massive conspiracy in front of the entire galaxy? They'll deny everything, call you a liar. It'll be your word against theirs. Unless we have undeniable proof, Hana said. She looked at Tay. We need a demonstration. Something no one can deny. Tay understood what she meant. His heart started pounding. You want me to touch one of them, he said. In front of everyone. Not just touch, Hana said. We need a Valrine female to willingly step out of her containment and make contact with an alien. If nothing happens, if she doesn't become corrupted or infertile, then the whole doctrine collapses right there. In real time. With 60 species watching. They'll kill me, Tay said. And her. They'll kill both of us before we get within 10 feet of each other. Maybe, Jay said quietly. Or maybe the presence of so many witnesses will stop them. Maybe they won't risk showing their brutality in front of the whole galaxy. Tay looked at the message from Saris. She was asking for help. Begging for it. Along with hundreds of other females who had no voice. No freedom. No choice in their own lives. He thought about the small alien who had been dragged away to die for accidentally bumping a containment field. He thought about Tyrex, the scientist who had told the truth and been executed for it. He thought about all the Valrine females who had spoken out and disappeared. Someone had to stop it. Someone had to stand up. Okay, Tay said. Let's do it. Let's break their lie in front of the entire galaxy. The Grand Galactic Assembly was held on a massive neutral space station called Unity Point. It orbited a dead star, far from any single species territory. The station was ancient, built by a civilization that had vanished long ago. Now it served as the meeting place for the galaxy's most important decisions. Tay arrived 2 days early. He needed time to prepare, time to make sure everything was perfect. There would be no second chances. Ambassador Threx had agreed to sponsor Tay's presentation. The young Valrine was different from his elders. He'd studied at universities across the galaxy. He'd seen how other species lived. He'd started to question some of his own culture's traditions. When Tay showed him Hana's research and the messages from the females, Threx was shocked but not surprised. I have always felt something was wrong, Threx said. His translator made his clicking voice sound sad. But I had no proof. My people do not question the old ways. To doubt is to be cast out. Are you ready to be cast out? Tay asked. Threx was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. If it means telling the truth, yes. I am ready. The night before the assembly, Tay couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what could go wrong. The Valrine government would try to stop him. They might have assassins. They might start a riot. They might find some way to silence him before he could speak. And even if he succeeded, what then? Touching a Valrine female in public would cause an interstellar incident. It might destroy human relations with the Valrine forever. It might even start a war. But then Tay thought about Ceres and the others, about the females who had lived their entire lives in transparent boxes, who had never felt the touch of another being, who had been told their whole lives that they were too sacred to be treated as equals. Some things were worth fighting for. The assembly hall was enormous. It could hold 10,000 beings. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from 60 species sat in curved rows, rising up like a giant amphitheater. At the center was a circular platform where speakers addressed the crowd. Tay stood backstage, his heart pounding. Hana and Jay were with him, along with Minho, who had come as security. They'd brought all their evidence. Scientific data, historical records, testimony from Valrine females. Everything they'd gathered over the past month. "You don't have to do this," Hana said quietly. "We could just present the research. Let them decide based on the evidence." "They'll ignore evidence," Tay said. "They've been ignoring it for centuries. We need something undeniable, something they can't explain away or hide." "Then we're with you," Jay said. "Whatever happens." Ambassador Threx came backstage. Behind him walked 3 Valrine females in their containment boxes. The boxes floated on anti-gravity platforms, pushed by male guards. Tay recognized one of them immediately. Ceres. She saw Tay and her compound eyes seemed to light up. She placed one hand against the inside of her box. Tay nodded slightly. She understood. They were really going to do this. "It is time," Threx said. "Are you prepared?" "As prepared as I'll ever be." They walked onto the platform together. The massive crowd fell silent. Thousands of aliens from dozens of worlds all turned to watch. Tay had never felt so exposed in his life. Threx spoke first. "Honored members of the Galactic Assembly, today we present evidence of a grave injustice that has persisted for millennia. Captain Tay Kim of humanity will explain." Tay stepped forward. He'd practiced this speech 100 times, but now his mouth felt dry. He cleared his throat and began. "For thousands of years, the Valrine have isolated their females, claiming they possess a sacred energy that must be protected from all alien contact. Today, I will prove that this doctrine is based on a lie." Angry clicking and buzzing erupted from the Valrine delegation. Commander Vesh stood up, his robes swirling. "This is an outrage. Remove this human from the platform." "Let him speak," a voice said. It came from the eldest chair, a position of honor held by a wise old alien named Keeper Souls. "All who come before the assembly have the right to present their case," Tay continued. Hana stepped forward and presented her research on holographic screens. The molecular structure of the pheromone barrier. Its evolutionary purpose. Proof that it posed no danger to anyone. "This sacred energy is nothing more than an obsolete defense mechanism," Hana explained. "It cannot be corrupted by alien touch. That is biologically impossible." The crowd murmured. Some seemed interested. Others looked skeptical. The Valrine delegation was shouting now, calling it lies and heresy. Then Jay presented the historical evidence. The scientists who had discovered the truth and been silenced. The females who had accidentally been exposed to aliens and suffered no harm. The systematic cover-up by the Valrine government. "This is not about culture or religion," Jay said. "This is about control. The male elite have known the truth for generations. They've maintained the lie to preserve their power." Commander Vesh was furious now. "This is anti-Valrine propaganda. These humans are trying to destroy our way of life. They present false evidence and make wild accusations." "Then let us prove it," Tay said loudly. His voice echoed through the hall. "Let us conduct a simple test. Right here, right now, in front of everyone." The hall went completely silent. Every being leaned forward, waiting. "I propose," Tay said, his heart hammering, "that a Valrine female step out of her containment and make physical contact with an alien. If the sacred energy doctrine is true, something terrible will happen, but if we are right, nothing will happen at all." The crowd exploded with noise. Some species shouted in support. Others screamed in protest. The Valrine delegation demanded that Tay be arrested immediately. "This is sacrilege," Vesh roared. "I demand that." "I will do it." Everyone turned. The voice had come from one of the containment boxes. Ceres had activated her translator. She stood at the edge of her box, speaking for the first time in public. "I am Ceres, daughter of the 7th clan, and I volunteer to prove the truth. I will deactivate my containment and make contact with Captain Kim." The hall erupted again. Guards rushed toward the platform. Vesh was screaming orders, but Keeper Souls raised one ancient hand. "Everyone stop," the Keeper said. "This female has volunteered. According to assembly law, all beings have the right to bodily autonomy. If she chooses to step out of her containment, that is her choice." "She is not thinking clearly," Vesh shouted. "She has been corrupted by human lies. She must be stopped." "I am thinking very clearly," Ceres said calmly. "For the first time in my life, I am thinking clearly. And I choose freedom." She reached down and pressed a button on her containment field. The blue glow flickered and died. The transparent walls vanished. Ceres stood there, completely exposed to the air of the assembly hall. Nothing happened. She took a step forward. Then another. She walked across the platform toward Tay. The guards tried to grab her, but Minho and several other security officers blocked them. The entire galaxy watched as a Valrine female moved freely, for the first time in recorded history. Ceres stopped in front of Tay. Up close, he could see she was trembling, but her eyes were steady and determined. "Are you sure?" Tay whispered. "I have never been more sure of anything," she replied. Slowly, carefully, Ceres raised her thin hand. Her exoskeleton was smooth and dark, with those beautiful purple markings. Tay raised his hand too. His skin looked so different from hers, soft and tan where hers was hard and blue. The entire assembly held its breath. Their hands touched, palm to palm, human and Valrine, male and female. Two beings from different worlds, making contact for the first time. 10 seconds passed. 20, 30, nothing happened. No corruption. No sacred energy disruption. No catastrophe. Just two people holding hands. Then something unexpected occurred. Another containment field flickered and died. A second Valrine female stepped out. Then a third. All three females walked forward and stood beside Ceres and Tay. "We choose freedom too," one of them said. From the audience, more Valrine females began deactivating their containments. Dozens of them. They stood up from where they'd been sitting, separated from the crowd. They walked down to the platform. Joining the others, Commander Vesh screamed for his guards to stop them. Some guards moved forward, weapons raised, but others hesitated, and some guards, younger ones like Threx, actually moved to protect the females instead. The Valrine delegation was in chaos. Half of them were shouting to arrest everyone. The other half were frozen, watching their entire world change before their eyes. Keeper Souls stood up. The ancient alien's voice carried authority that cut through the noise. "I have witnessed enough. The Assembly recognizes that the sacred energy doctrine appears to be based on false premises. A full investigation will be launched into the Valrine government's treatment of its female population. Until that investigation is complete, all Valrine females will be granted refugee status if they wish to seek it." The crowd erupted in approval and protest simultaneously. It was the loudest thing Tay had ever heard. He looked down at his hand, still touching Ceres's. She looked up at him, and he could swear she was smiling, though it was hard to tell with her alien features. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for being brave," Tay replied. Around them, freed Valrine females embraced each other. Some were crying. Some were laughing. All of them were touching and being touched, experiencing physical contact without barriers for the first time in their lives. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was the beginning of something that would change Valrine society forever. But it was real. It was happening. One human had stepped forward. One Valrine female had answered. And together, they had shattered a lie 3,000 years old. 3 months after the Grand Assembly, Tay stood in his quarters on Helios 7 and watched the news reports. Every screen showed the same story. The Valrine civil rights movement was sweeping across Valrine space. Millions of females were stepping out of their containment fields. Some faced resistance from conservative males who tried to stop them, but many males, especially younger ones like Threx, joined the reform movement. Universities were opening to female students for the first time. Laboratories that had only employed males now welcomed female scientists. The change was happening faster than anyone had predicted. But it wasn't peaceful. The Council of Preservers had tried to crush the movement with military force. For 2 weeks, it looked like civil war might tear Valrine society apart. Conservative forces attacked reform centers. They destroyed research facilities that supported the freedom movement. They arrested hundreds of female activists. The galaxy watched and waited. Would the Valrine destroy themselves from within? Or would they find a new way forward? The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Commander Vesh, the same male who had tried to stop Ceres at the assembly, publicly changed his position. In a broadcast watched by billions, he admitted that he had always known the sacred energy doctrine was false. He revealed that the Council of Preservers had secret documents proving the truth had been suppressed for over 200 years. "I am ashamed," Vesh said on that broadcast. His clicking voice was heavy with emotion. "I am ashamed that I participated in this lie, that I helped oppress half of my own species for the sake of power and tradition. The humans did not corrupt our females. They freed them from our corruption." His confession broke the dam. Other high-ranking males came forward with similar admissions. Documents were released showing the extent of the conspiracy. The public outrage was enormous. Within a month, the Council of Preservers was dissolved. A new government formed, with equal representation for males and females. It was messy. It was imperfect. But it was progress. Tay's door chimed. He opened it to find Hana and Jay standing there with Minho. All 3 of them looked tired but happy. "The Galactic Council just released their investigation report," Hana said, holding up a datapad. "All charges against you have been dropped. Not just dropped. Expunged. They're calling you a hero." "I don't feel like a hero," Tay said. "People died during the upheaval. Families were torn apart. I started something I couldn't control." "You started something that needed to happen," Jay corrected. "Yes, there was conflict. But the alternative was thousands more years of oppression. Sometimes breaking chains is painful. That doesn't mean the chains should have stayed." Minho nodded. "Besides, you're getting an award. The Council is giving you the Medal of Galactic Service. First human to receive it in 40 years. Tay shook his head. "I don't want a medal. I just wanted to help." "That's exactly why you deserve it," Hana said. Over the next few weeks, Tay received hundreds of messages. Some praised him. Some called him a destroyer of cultures. Some threatened his life. He read them all, but responded to none of them. The message he cared about most came from Ceres. She'd become the spokesperson for the Valrine female liberation movement. Her face was on every news screen across the galaxy. She spoke at universities, at government assemblies, at rallies attended by millions. She was eloquent and passionate, explaining what it meant to live in a cage, even a gilded one. She talked about dignity and choice, and the right to control one's own body and future. "Captain Kim," her message began. "I wanted to tell you what has happened since we last spoke. Over 10 million Valrine females have left their containment fields. We are working now. Learning. Teaching. We are touching our children without barriers. We are making our own decisions about who we marry, where we live, what we become. It is overwhelming. It is terrifying. It is wonderful. The message continued. But I also want to tell you about the cost. 3,000 females have died in the conflicts that followed. Conservatives who refused to accept change killed them. Another 5,000 are in hiding, fleeing from family members who view them as traitors. The road to freedom is soaked in blood and tears. Tay felt his throat tighten as he watched. But we do not regret it, Sarah said. Even those who died, they made a choice. They chose to live one day as free beings, rather than 1,000 years as ornaments. You gave us that choice. You stood with us when no one else would. For that, every Valrine female owes you a debt we can never repay. She paused, and Tay could see emotion in her alien features. The journey is far from over. We have new laws. But changing hearts takes longer than changing governments. Many males still believe we are inferior. Many still think we should return to the old ways. We will spend generations proving ourselves as equals. But we will do it. Because now, we have the chance. Thank you, Captain Kim. Thank you for stepping forward. When we needed someone brave, the message ended. Tay sat in silence for a long time. A month later, Tay was invited to speak at a ceremony on Unity Point. The same assembly hall where he'd touched Saris's hand was now hosting a celebration. Leaders from across the galaxy had come to witness the signing of the Valrine Equality Accords, a document that guaranteed equal rights for all Valrine citizens regardless of gender. Tay stood on the platform again, but this time he wasn't nervous. He'd learned something important over these months. Change was never clean. It was never simple. But it was always necessary. I'm often asked if I have regrets, Tay said to the assembled crowd. People want to know if I think I did the right thing. If the cost was worth it. If I would do it again. He paused and looked around the hall. He saw Valrine females sitting next to males, working together, instead of separated by barriers. He saw Ambassador Threx, now a high-ranking official in the new government. He saw Hana, Jay, and Minho in the front row, smiling at him, and he saw Saris, standing at the side of the stage without any containment field, just standing there, free. My answer is yes, Tay continued. I would do it again. Because I believe that freedom is not a cultural preference. It's a fundamental right. It belongs to every sentient being in the galaxy, regardless of their species, their gender, or their history. The Valrine are not the only species with unjust traditions. Across the galaxy, there are beings living in chains, visible and invisible. There are those who are told they are too weak, too sacred, too different to have the same rights as others. And there are systems, ancient and powerful, that maintain these lies for the sake of control. What happened here shows us that change is possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. One person stepped forward, one person answered, and together, we challenged a lie that had stood for 3,000 years. If we can do it here, we can do it anywhere. The crowd applauded. Not everyone agreed with him. Some species thought he had overstepped, that he had no right to interfere with Valrine culture. But others, many others, saw hope in what had happened. After the ceremony, Tay found himself standing at an observation window, watching ships pass by the station. Saris joined him. She'd removed most of her ceremonial clothing, and now wore simple, practical garments. She looked more comfortable than Tay had ever seen her. I hear you are leaving soon, Saris said, returning to human space. Yes, my work here is done. Time to go home. Home, Saris repeated thoughtfully. I understand that word now. For so long, I had no home. Just a cage that moved from place to place. Now I can choose where I belong. It is a strange feeling. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Your species is strange, Captain Kim, Saris said eventually. Humans have so many flaws. You fight wars. You disagree about everything. You make terrible mistakes. But you also have something special. When you see someone suffering behind a barrier, you cannot walk away. You must reach through it. Tay smiled. That's humanity for you. We're not perfect. We're not always right. But we're really good at breaking things that need to be broken. The galaxy needs more breakers, Sarah said. More beings willing to challenge the old lies. More people like you. I'm not special, Tay protested. I just did what anyone would do. No, Sarah said firmly. Most people see injustice and tell themselves it is not their problem. It is not their culture. Not their fight. You saw suffering and made it your fight. That is rare. That is precious. She reached out and placed her hand on Tay's shoulder. A simple gesture, but one that would have been impossible 4 months ago. Now it was just a natural expression of gratitude and friendship. Thank you, she said again, for being brave when we needed bravery. For standing with us when we stood alone. Thank you for being brave too, Tay replied. I just offered my hand. You were the one who took it. Across Valrine space and beyond, change continued to ripple outward. Other oppressed groups saw what the Valrine females had achieved and began demanding their own rights. The galaxy was becoming louder, messier, more complicated, but also freer. More equal, more just. It would take generations to undo thousands of years of oppression. There would be setbacks and failures. But the door had been opened, the lie had been exposed, and now, finally, Valrine females could touch and be touched. Could choose and be chosen. Could live as equals rather than ornaments. Tay boarded his transport ship the next day. As the ship pulled away from Unity Point, he looked back at the station through the viewport. Somewhere in there, Saris and millions like her were building a new future. A future where no one had to live in a cage because of what they were born as. He thought about the small alien who had been executed for bumping a containment field. He thought about Tyrex, the scientist who had died for telling the truth. He thought about all the Valrine females throughout history who had suffered in silence. Their sacrifices hadn't been in vain. The chain was broken.